My wife, someone I had trusted for years, started acting like I was the enemy. I didn't understand what was happening. I thought maybe it was stress. Maybe it was me. But then the truth came out. And once I saw it, really saw it, I knew I had to act. Fast. This is the story of how I came to the edge of losing everything that mattered to me, and how I fought to take it back. My name's Mike. I live in the suburbs outside Minneapolis, work full-time at a local transmission shop. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. I turn wrenches, fix busted axles, rebuild gearboxes. Been doing it most of my adult life. Never got rich, but I always made sure my family had what they needed. My wife, Ashley, and I have been together for a long time. We've got 2 kids. Sarah's 14, Trevor's 12. They go to the local middle and high school, both smart and good-hearted. Sarah's into band. Trevor plays baseball in the spring. I help with homework when I can, get them to practice, try to stay involved. Family's always been my number one. Ashley used to feel the same. When we were younger, we were a team. She'd swing by the shop sometimes just to drop off lunch or sit with me on break. We'd talk about future vacations, about saving for the kids' college, growing old together. Back then, we were close. She smiled more, laughed more. Now, not so much. It started slowly. I'd come home from work, and she'd barely look up from her phone. Said she was tired, burned out. I figured maybe it was just a phase. She started going out more, yoga, book clubs, girls' nights. I didn't ask questions. I figured everyone needs space. I didn't want to be that guy who controls his wife's schedule. But then the attitude changed. She started picking at me. Little comments at first, about how I smelled like oil, how I always left my boots by the door. Then it turned sharper. I'd make a joke, and she'd roll her eyes in front of the kids. Or worse, she'd talk about me like I wasn't even in the room. Mike's hopeless with tools, unless they've got a price tag attached. Or, he forgets things unless it's football or beer. At first, I brushed it off. Everyone vents sometimes, right? But it kept going. She started jabbing at me in front of friends. We were at a neighbor's barbecue, and I made some comment about fixing the shed. She laughed, loudly, and said, "Mike fixed something? That'll be the day." Everybody chuckled, but I felt about an inch tall. Even the kids noticed. One night, Sarah asked me quietly, "Are you and Mom okay?" That hurt more than I can explain. Then came the fights. Not yelling matches, at least not at first. More like traps. I'd walk in the door after work, tired and sore, and she'd be waiting with something. A cold look. A snide remark. A complaint about how I never helped enough. Never listened. Never tried. And when I finally snapped, because eventually I did, she pulled out her phone. Hit record. I didn't notice it the first couple of times. But then I caught the red light blinking while I was raising my voice, trying to defend myself. She stood there calm, quiet, like she knew exactly what she was doing. "Just in case," she said when I asked her. "In case you lose it again." I felt sick. Suddenly I was the bad guy. I started second-guessing everything I said, everything I did. And that's exactly what she wanted. At family gatherings, she acted like the victim. Told her sister I'd changed, told her mom I barely spoke anymore. But she didn't tell them about the things she said behind closed doors. Or how she'd leave for hours with no explanation and come back smelling like someone else's cologne. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But something inside me had already shifted. The woman I used to love was gone. And whatever game she was playing, I was starting to realize I was just a piece in it. And I had no idea what her next move was. But I could feel it coming. It got worse. Ashley's little jabs weren't random anymore. They were steady. Measured. Like clockwork. Every time I tried to do something right, she found a way to spin it wrong. If I cooked dinner, she'd say I left the kitchen a mess. If I helped Trevor with homework, she'd tell me I was explaining it wrong. If I got home a few minutes late, she'd make a point of sighing real loud, like I'd ruined her whole evening. And always with that same tone, calm, collected, just annoyed enough to make me feel like I was the problem. I didn't yell. Not at first. I bit my tongue so hard some nights I could taste blood. I told myself she was stressed, or tired, or going through something she wasn't ready to talk about. I figured, give it time. Give her space. Then she started doing it in front of the kids. One Saturday, we were packing the car for Trevor's baseball game. I forgot the cooler. Just forgot. I said, "My bad, I'll grab it." But Ashley rolled her eyes, looked at Sarah and said, "Your dad's always forgetting something." I swear I've got 3 kids. Sarah didn't laugh. She just looked away. That was worse. Ashley would correct, Me in front of people like I was some dumb apprentice who couldn't be trusted with basic tasks. Like I wasn't a grown man with grease under his nails and bills to pay. She wanted people to see me as useless. She wanted the kids to think I was unstable. And I started to wonder, why? Then came the blow-ups. I'd be sitting on the couch after a long day, just trying to watch the news, and suddenly she'd come in hot. Are you ever going to fix that leaky faucet? Or are we just waiting for the kitchen to flood? Or, maybe if you put half as much energy into this family as you do your job, we wouldn't be falling apart. Sometimes I said nothing. Other times, I said too much. I started snapping back. Not proud of it, but a man can only take so much. I never touched her. Never laid a hand. But yeah, my voice got louder than it should have. I slammed a door once. Raised my voice in the car. And that's when I realized, that's exactly what she wanted. Because every time I lost it, even just a little, her phone was nearby. Sometimes out in the open, sometimes tucked just barely into her hoodie pocket, recording. One night, after an argument, I saw her send a voice file to someone. Just casually, like it was no big deal. I didn't say anything. I just watched. That's when the knot formed in my gut. She wasn't venting. She was collecting, building a case. I started piecing it together. How she'd turn calm the second I raised my voice. How she'd bait me with comments that no one else would believe she actually said. And then I'd react, and suddenly I was the one with the problem. And the kids saw it all. She'd pick fights in front of them. Then later, tell them quietly, your dad's just under a lot of stress. Or worse, he's not himself lately. Sarah started keeping to her room. Trevor barely looked me in the eye. That's when the panic started to creep in. I wasn't just dealing with a cold wife. I was dealing with a setup. And I was playing right into it. I didn't know what her endgame was exactly. Maybe she wanted to paint me as the bad guy and walk away clean. Maybe she wanted the kids to choose her. Maybe she wanted the court to. All I knew was, if this turned into a fight, she was getting ready to win it. And I was already behind. It happened on a Thursday. Nothing special about that day. I came home late from work. We had a transmission job that ran long. I was dirty, sore, starving. Walked in through the garage like always. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Ashley wasn't in the kitchen. No dinner on the stove. No noise from the kids. Just the hum of the fridge and the creak of the floorboards under my boots. I found Trevor in his room, headphones on, locked into some game. Sarah was doing homework on the couch, earbuds in. When I asked where their mom was, Sarah shrugged. Said she had book club. Book club. Again. I nodded and went to shower, trying to push that gnawing feeling down. I've been doing that a lot lately. Just trying to hold things together. Get through one day without a fight. One day without feeling like a stranger in my own house. When I came out, Ashley still wasn't back. Her phone was buzzing on the nightstand. That thing was usually glued to her hand. It vibrated once. Then again. Then again. I glanced at the screen. You looked amazing tonight. Wish we had more time. The name at the top was saved as Jess Book Club. But I'm not an idiot. I picked up the phone. My hands were shaking. Not from anger. Yet. From dread. I tapped the thread. Just enough to see more of it. Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? That dress should be illegal. There were pictures. One of Ashley holding a glass of wine, smiling into the camera with candlelight in the background. Another of her and him, a selfie, his arm around her waist. Her head tilted toward him like they were on vacation. That was no book club. I put the phone back where I found it. My heart was pounding. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. She had a man on the side. Everything came rushing in like a wave. The sudden coldness. The attacks. The recordings. The way she turned the kids against me without saying anything outright. She didn't just fall out of love. She wanted out. And she wanted to look like the victim when she left. It was never about me yelling or being distant or never listening. That was the story she was building, piece by piece. So when she walked away, it would all make sense. So the courts would hand her the kids. So her friends would nod and say, poor Ashley, she tried everything. He just snapped. No one would mention the guy in the photos. The secret dates. The hotel receipts I'd eventually find in her purse. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the floor. I felt stupid. Weak. Like I'd been the last one to figure out the joke, and everyone else had already laughed. But I wasn't going to blow up. Not this time. That's what she wanted. Instead, I stood up, took a breath, and finally saw things clearly. I was in a fight now. A real one. Not for her. Not even for myself. For my kids. Because if she was willing to lie to my face every day, walk around this house like she was better than me, sneak off to be with another man while I kept the lights on, then I had no doubt she'd lie in court, too. And if I didn't do something soon, I was going to lose everything that mattered. The setup wasn't random. It had a name, a face, a plan. And now I had a reason to push back. I didn't sleep that night. Ashley came home after 10. She was wearing makeup she didn't put on for me anymore. Hair done. Perfume I hadn't smelled in months. She walked through the door like nothing had happened, said the usual, "Hey, sorry, book club ran late." I just nodded. Didn't even look at her. I already knew. She went upstairs, humming. Like she was proud of herself. Like everything was going exactly the way she planned. And maybe it was. Until now. Because now I saw it all for what it was. The fights. The attitude. The recordings. The little jabs in front of the kids. It wasn't just some emotional drift or a midlife crisis. It was a campaign. She was setting the scene. Making me look like the unhinged one. The one who couldn't control his temper. The bad husband. The unstable dad. And I was walking straight into it. Every raised voice, every slammed cabinet door, every frustrated sigh she caught on tape. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She was building a case. And the goal? Full custody. Max child support. A clean exit from a life she already checked out of, without losing her image in the neighborhood or her standing with the kids. She wanted to look like the hero walking away from the villain. And that's when it hit me hardest. She was using our kids to get there. The comments she made when I wasn't around. The subtle ways she undermined me. Things like, "Don't bother your dad, he's always tired," or "Maybe ask me next time, he'll probably forget." That stuff sticks. Especially with kids Sarah's and Trevor's age. Old enough to notice, but too young to see the manipulation. I had no idea how long it had been going on. Months, probably. And here's what made it worse. It was working. I could feel Sarah pulling away. She barely spoke to me unless I spoke first. Trevor used to greet me at the door when I got home. Now he barely looked up from his video games. I'd ask about school and I'd get one-word answers. I was starting to disappear from their lives, and I was still living in the same house. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. But now that I knew, everything changed. I didn't blow up. I didn't storm into the bedroom and demand answers. That's what she wanted. One more outburst to add to her little collection. No. I stayed quiet. Because I finally saw what I was up against. And if she wanted to play it cold and calculated, fine. So would I. I started paying attention. Watching her. Listening more. Not reacting. Just observing. When she left the house, I took note of how long she was gone. I checked receipts she left in the trash. Restaurant charges from places across town I'd never been. Gas stations near a hotel district. I started talking to a few people I trusted. Close friends. One guy from work, another from church. Told them things were rough but didn't give too much detail. I was testing the water, seeing who might back me up if this ever went to court. One of them, Matt, looked uncomfortable when I brought Ashley's name up. He hesitated, then said, "Mike, I don't want to stir anything, man, but I saw her. A few weeks ago. At the Birchwood Inn. She wasn't alone." He didn't know the guy's name. Just said he looked younger. Confident. Touchy. That's all I needed to hear. Now I had proof. Maybe not physical yet, but the pieces were coming together. And I knew one thing for sure. I had to get ahead of this before it all crashed down. Because Ashley was about to make her move. And I needed to be ready when she did. Something changed in me that week. It wasn't rage. It wasn't bitterness. It was colder than that. Cleaner. Like something had snapped into focus, and I finally saw the line between what I could fix and what I couldn't. Ashley wasn't coming back. Not really. She'd made her choice. The only reason she was still here was because she hadn't finished building the story where I was the villain and she was the brave survivor. That's what this all was. A performance. So I stopped playing along. No more reacting. No more shouting. I didn't give her anything she could twist or clip or send to her lawyer. When she threw little insults my way, I smiled and walked away. When she tried to bait me into an argument, I calmly said, "Not doing this," and left the room. And that threw her off. She didn't say it, but I could see it in her eyes. Confusion. Annoyance. Even a little panic. She needed me to lose it. That was the next step in her plan. She needed a scene. A moment she could replay for the judge or the mediator or whoever she thought would hand her everything. But I stayed silent and started gathering my own story. First, I met with a lawyer. Not some billboard guy with a Bluetooth headset, but a younger guy named Cole. Sharp, quiet, focused. The kind of person who doesn't waste words because he knows exactly what he's doing. I told him the truth, everything. The fights, the recordings, the kids pulling away. I even told him about the affair, even though I didn't have photos or texts yet. He leaned back in his chair and said, "She's building a case for custody." I nodded. "Yeah, I figured that out." "Then we need to build one too," he said. "But smarter." He told me to document everything. Every time she left the house. Every time she insulted me in front of the kids. Anything that could show a pattern, not of me being unstable, but of her being manipulative, dishonest, and, most important of all, unfaithful before the marriage actually broke down. That last part? That mattered. Because if she was cheating long before things fell apart, it could flip the whole narrative. Courts look different at a mother who's sabotaging her own home to run off with someone else. So I started writing it all down. Quietly. Date, time, what she said, where she went. Every little detail. Then I started spending more time with Sarah and Trevor. Not forcing it, just showing up. Picking Trevor up from practice even when she said she would. Sitting at the kitchen table and helping Sarah with homework, even if she didn't ask. At first, they were stiff. Especially Sarah. But little by little, I could feel them thawing. I wasn't trying to win them over. I just wanted them to remember who I was. Their dad. The guy who got up at 6 a.m. every day. Who fixed their bikes. Who brought them Gatorade during soccer games and never missed a parent-teacher night. They needed to see it. Because Ashley was trying to erase it. One night, Trevor came into the garage while I was working on the mower. He leaned against the doorframe and asked, "Are you and Mom gonna get divorced?" I didn't lie. "I think so, but..." He looked down. "Will we still live here?" "I don't know yet," I said. "But I promise, no matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere." He nodded. Didn't say anything. But he stayed in the garage with me the rest of the night, just handing me tools. That meant more than any words. I wasn't out of the woods. Not even close. But the tide was starting to turn. And I wasn't backing down. It came on a Monday. I was pulling into the driveway after work, still wearing my shop uniform, hands stained with grease, when a white sedan pulled up behind me. A guy in a button-down stepped out with a clipboard. Polite. Too polite. "Mike Dawson," he asked. "Yeah." He handed me an envelope. "You've been served." I didn't say anything. Just took it. He gave me a quick nod and walked back to his car like he had 100 more to deliver. Probably did. I stood there for a moment, envelope in hand, engine still running behind me. I knew it was coming. I just didn't know it would hit like that. Inside the envelope, official divorce filing. Full custody request. Temporary spousal support. Child support. The whole thing laid out like I was a criminal being processed. Like I'd failed her. Failed the kids. Like she was escaping something dangerous, not walking away from the man who paid the mortgage and folded the laundry on Sundays. She hadn't even looked me in the eye. That night, she acted like nothing happened. She made herself a salad, scrolled on her phone, turned on her favorite show. The papers weren't mentioned once. She didn't need to. She'd already moved on from the marriage, from the guilt, from pretending to care. But I wasn't surprised anymore. I was ready. I called Cole, my attorney, the next morning. He looked over the documents and exhaled through his nose like a guy who's seen this too many times. "She's going for the jugular," he said. "Can she actually get all of it?" "Not if we do this right." "But she's painting a picture, unstable husband, worn-down wife, scared kids. I guarantee she's got audio, maybe even text messages she's cherry-picked." "She does," I said. "She's been recording fights for weeks." Cole nodded. "Then we have to flip the story." He leaned in. "We find out when the affair started. If she was cheating while pretending to fix the marriage, and especially if the kids knew about it, then we've got leverage." And that was the key word, leverage. Because the courts? They don't care about feelings. They care about patterns. Timelines. Who lied first? Who put the kids in the middle? Who acted in bad faith? And that's exactly what Ashley had done. Cole set up a private investigator. Told me to keep documenting everything. And most importantly, he scheduled a quiet interview with Sarah and Trevor. Just a conversation, nothing scary, so they could talk to someone neutral. He said, "We're not going to pressure them. But if they bring up a man, a name, a timeline, we're in business." In the meantime, I kept playing it cool. Ashley didn't expect that. She thought the papers would break me, that I'd explode, give her more ammo, prove her point for her. But I didn't. When she dropped a comment like, "Don't be late with the child support," I just said, "Talk to your lawyer." When she muttered under her breath about toxic energy in the house, I walked into the garage and shut the door behind me. No anger. No cracks. Just calm. Because now we were in the part of the story where every word mattered. And behind closed doors, I was building mine. Brick by brick. Truth by truth. Let her think she was winning. Let her think the silence meant surrender. Because when the truth came out, it wouldn't be in a scream. It'd be in a courtroom. In front of a judge. And I'd have every last piece I needed. Cole called me 2 weeks later. It was early in the morning, just after I dropped Trevor off at school. I was sipping gas station coffee in the shop parking lot, waiting for the bay doors to open. His voice was calm, but I could hear the shift underneath it. "We talked to the kids," he said. "You need to hear this." My heart jumped into my throat. I hadn't coached them. I hadn't told them what to say. I didn't want to pull them into it, didn't want them carrying my baggage. But I also knew they'd seen things, heard things that might matter. Cole continued. It came up naturally. The investigator just asked about routines, who drops them off, who makes dinner, who's around the house during the day. Okay. And Sarah mentioned something. She said, kind of offhand, that she always knew not to bother Mom and the yoga guy after school because they'd be in the bedroom with the door locked. I froze. What? She didn't say it with judgment, he said. Didn't even seem to think it was a big deal. Said it had been happening since early last fall. Before the fights really started between you two. That was months before Ashley ever accused me of anything. Before she started recording arguments. Before she made me out to be the unstable one. Cole let it sit for a second. Then he said, that changes everything. He explained it clearly. If Ashley was in a full-blown relationship before the marriage had broken down, especially while still living under the same roof, pretending to co-parent, then the entire foundation of her divorce narrative cracked. She was never trying to fix anything, he said. She was replacing it behind your back. And the kids knew. That's huge. It means they were exposed to the other man while you were still married. It shows deception. Shows instability. We can make the case that she manipulated the situation, provoked conflict, and used her affair to gain the upper hand. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, because maybe, just maybe, I wasn't going to lose everything. But also heartbreak, because my kids had seen it. They'd been carrying that knowledge. Living in that confusion. Wondering why the house felt wrong. It made me want to punch a wall. But I didn't. I just sat there in my truck, holding the phone, letting it sink in. Cole said he was filing a motion. We'd include the timeline. Bring in the new witness statement. Request a full review of custody, support, and marital misconduct. He told me not to expect miracles overnight, but that we'd just gotten the peace we needed. I thanked him. I didn't have the words to say more. That night, I didn't bring any of it up with the kids. I didn't want them to feel used or pulled into the fight. Instead, I made dinner, pasta and garlic bread, simple stuff. We sat at the table together, all three of us, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like a real family again. Sarah even smiled when I cracked a lame joke about Trevor's messy hair. He groaned, but I saw the smirk hiding under his breath. Ashley didn't get home until late. She looked surprised to see us all sitting there, laughing. She asked what we were doing. Just talking, I said, calm as ever. Spending time. She didn't like that. I could see it in her eyes. Her story was starting to slip. Her mask was cracking. And I wasn't playing along anymore. The courtroom was quiet. Too quiet. Ashley sat across from me in a navy blue blazer, hair perfectly done, makeup just subtle enough to say stable mother, but sharp enough to look put together. Her lawyer, some polished guy in a three-piece suit, kept patting her hand like she was the grieving widow of a broken home. I just sat there in my pressed work shirt, hands folded, eyes forward. I didn't come to perform. I came for the truth. The judge flipped through the paperwork, reading carefully. Every few minutes, she looked up, just slightly, as if trying to get a read on us. Her expression didn't give much away, but I knew what she had in front of her. Because Cole had put together something airtight. He started with the basics. My income, my parenting history, my role in the kids' lives. No dramatics. Just records. School drop-offs, doctor visits, emails from teachers. Bank statements showing I'd covered every major expense without missing a beat, even when things at home started falling apart. Ashley's lawyer fired back with the recordings. Of course he did. Short, clipped audio files of me raising my voice. Saying things like, "You think I'm blind?" or "You treat me like garbage in my own house." I cringed listening to them. It wasn't who I was, but it was my voice. Ashley looked down during those moments, as if she couldn't bear to hear it. But it was fake. I knew it. The judge watched her carefully. When it was our turn again, Cole stood and said calmly, "Your Honor, we're not denying that my client raised his voice. What we're doing is showing context. And more importantly, motive." He handed the judge a printout, thick with exhibits. Then he brought up the timeline. The children, during independent interviews, described a man who had been visiting the home for several months prior to any recorded conflict between the parents. They knew his name. They recalled times they were told to stay in their rooms while he was there. We've also included a statement from a neighbor who witnessed a second car parked outside the Dawson home during weekday afternoons, repeatedly, going back as far as October. Ashley shifted in her seat. Her smile, fake and frozen, wavered. Cole continued, "We also have financial records, joint marital funds used to book hotel rooms, dinners, and weekend trips. These dates align with the children's statements and predate any official separation or filing." The courtroom stayed silent, but you could feel the energy shift. Even Ashley's lawyer looked uneasy. He glanced at her, and for the first time all day, she wouldn't look back. Cole didn't gloat. He didn't raise his voice. He just laid it out. Brick by brick, the foundation of her story fell apart. Then he said the one sentence that landed harder than anything else. "This wasn't a woman escaping an abusive home, Your Honor. This was a woman engineering a breakdown, while building another life behind the scenes. She put her children in the middle. She misled the court, and she tried to rewrite history to serve her outcome." The judge didn't nod, didn't frown, just sat still, listening. Ashley's lawyer tried to recover, said something about emotional instability, about how even good people make mistakes under stress. But it didn't land the same way anymore. When the judge finally spoke, her voice was measured. "The evidence suggests the mother was engaged in an extramarital relationship prior to the deterioration of the marriage. The children were aware of the presence of this individual. This creates concern regarding emotional environment, judgment, and parental stability." She paused, then said, "Temporary full custody is awarded to Mr. Dawson, pending final review." I felt my heart drop, but not in fear. In relief. Ashley looked like she'd been slapped. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She wasn't in control anymore. She wasn't the victim. And she knew it. Ashley didn't say a word when we left the courthouse. She walked out stiff and slow, her heels clicking against the concrete like gunshots in the silence. Her lawyer trailed behind her, looking everywhere but at me. She didn't even glance back. I stood on the steps for a long time after they were gone. The breeze hit me hard, but it felt good. Real. Like the air carried something new in it. I didn't smile. Not yet. But for the first time in months, I could breathe without a weight sitting on my chest. Back home, the kids were waiting. My sister had picked them up from school and stayed with them while I was in court. When I walked in, they both looked at me like they were bracing for news they couldn't quite name. "It's settled for now," I said gently. "You're staying here. With me." Trevor let out a breath like he'd been holding it for a year. Sarah didn't say anything, but she walked straight over and hugged me. No words. Just a tight, silent hug. That meant everything. Ashley didn't come back that night. Or the next. Eventually, she showed up to get some clothes. I heard her car in the driveway and opened the door before she could knock. She looked different, paler, thinner, not put together like she'd been during the hearings. Just tired. She didn't say hi. "You really played the long game, huh?" she muttered, stepping past me. I didn't answer. I just watched as she packed a few suitcases. Took some makeup, a laptop, some jewelry. She didn't touch the photos on the wall. Didn't ask about the kids. When she walked out, I said one thing. "You did this to yourself, Ashley." She stopped at the door, turned slightly like she might argue. But there was nothing left to spin. She knew. The court had ordered her to pay child support. Nothing extreme, but enough to sting. More importantly, she was required to pay damages for legal costs and what the judge called intentional emotional destabilization. That was Cole's phrase. He'd fought hard for it, and he got it in writing. Ashley had tried to bankrupt me with this divorce. Instead, she ended up paying me. Her boyfriend? Gone. From what I heard through the grapevine, he didn't sign up for a woman with 2 kids and a courtroom full of lies. Once the heat came down, he ran fast and quiet. Ashley had burned down our life for him, and he didn't even stick around to watch the ashes cool. Friends she used to brag to? Most of them faded out. People talk in this town. Word gets around fast when your entire image turns out to be fake. She started showing up late to her shifts at the spa she worked at. Got written up more than once. I heard she'd moved into a studio apartment near downtown. Not the cozy cottage life she thought she was trading up for. And the kids? They stopped asking when she'd be around. That was the hardest part. Watching them grow colder toward their own mother. I never encouraged it. Never said a word against her in front of them. But kids aren't stupid. They see what's real. Sometimes Trevor asks if she's okay. I tell him she is. I don't lie, but I don't let bitterness shape the truth either. Sarah, though, she's different. Quieter. More guarded. She didn't even say goodbye to us, she said once. And I didn't have an answer for that. Ashley tried to rewrite the story. Tried to paint me as the villain and herself as the brave one who walked away. But in the end, the truth came out. And when it did, it spoke louder than any recording she could have made.